What's up, Wargamers? Welcome back to World of Wargaming. I'm Isaiah, and today again I invite you to pull up a comfy chair, grab a tasty beverage and a delicious snack, and let me talk at you for a minute. And what I'd like to talk at you for a minute about today is this game, Carnevale from TT Combat. This game is weird history and simple dice mechanics and some really tasty economy of action choices all bundled up into one, and I'm a pretty big fan of it. And over the next few minutes I'm going to tell you why I'm a big fan of it. So let's start with the book itself. This is the book that comes with the large starter box. I've purchased both the regular starter box as well as a smaller starter box that they sell called Escape from San Canciano or Break Out of San Canciano or something from San Canciano. I bought them both because by buying them both I got myself free shipping when I ordered directly from TT Combat. And both reasonably priced boxes. The San Canciano box also comes with a smaller rule book. Now with that being said, this rule book is not completely up to date. I'd like to mention that first, and that is a bummer. However, the FAQ that has the updates in it is available online for free as a PDF document. You can download it, print it out, stick it in the rulebook if you'd like to do it that way. It's always a little bit disappointing when you buy a game and the rulebook isn't the most current rulebook. I think they also sell a copy of the most current rulebook, and it's a very reasonable price. I don't know what that price is off the top of my head, but it's a reasonable price. But again, the PDF update is free, put on your phone. And it's not a huge like overhaul of the system or anything like that. They tweaked some of the things that were already in the game, and they added in the hide action, and I think they may have made some tweaks to the guard action. So nothing drastic. The core of the rule books, the core of the rules is still intact and viable using this book or the one from San Canciano. It's just not all the stuff is worded quite the same. Not everything is set up quite the same. Now, that minor gripe aside, this is an absolutely stunning rule book. The art in this is phenomenal. Here, let me find a piece. So yeah, the art, absolutely gorgeous. The layout is easy to follow. It's everything is more or less where it makes sense for it to be. Now that being said, in all of this book, a very, very small amount of the book is actually rules. So all of this is fluff, which I'm going to talk about in a few minutes, but all of this chunk of the book right here is fluff. And then this, let me see, yeah. This chunk of the book is scenarios, campaigns, quick references, things of that nature. And then this is the rules of the game. So you get real hyped up reading through all the fluff, and then to get into the game is very, very quick and straightforward, which we're going to talk about the system in a few minutes. Let's talk about some of the fluff for this. Let's talk about the world that this game exists within. Okay, so Carnevale or Carnevale, I'm not really sure exactly how to say that word. Carnevale sounds much more appropriate to me, but I could be wrong. But that's beside the point. It is Venice, and it is the year 1795, and a giant catastrophe has befallen the world. Now that catastrophe happened because of decisions made by a very small number of individuals. So at this point in history, Venice is a dilapidated and run-down shadow of its former glory. Now at this time, a being called the Herald appears to the spiritual leaders around the world. And of course, the people at the Vatican in charge of keeping things secret and hush-hush decided to torture this being for information. He brought magic. He was bringing, he's going to show people how to do magic, bring that to our world, and all kinds of good stuff that could have been really good, But they decided to capture, torture, and kill him. Bind, torture, kill him. And when they did, this massive rent, this giant rip, opens up in the sky. Okay? And latent, like, magical radiation and stuff is pouring out of this thing. It causes the seas to rise in giant storms, and the bulk of Italy is pretty much just wiped off the map, just falls into the ocean, leaving Venice as the southernmost major port, which means a lot of commerce, a lot of trade, a lot of business is returning to the docks of Venice. Now, those docks and canals, that's where the bulk of the gameplay for Carnevale takes place. There are numerous factions which are detailed very in depth in the story section, or the fluff section of the book. It also gives you several timelines of events leading up to the rift, and as you read through the fluff section, if you actually sit down and read through the fluff section, it's very, very interesting. I like the way this is written. It kind of tells a story of an individual going on a night through Venice, and it kind of breaks off as they have interactions with these different factions around the city. And so you'll get a little piece of this individual's evening in Venice, and then it'll launch into the detail about the different factions. And the factions are really, really cool. The factions are kind of what pulled me in that, and I'm a sucker for weird history, personally. Like, I don't know, it harkens back to my early entry into TTRPGs, into tabletop role-playing games, with the World of Darkness games that are weird history types of games. And that just kind of hits a nostalgia button for me. It also just gives me the warm gamer fuzzies. Like, I just love it. So the first faction that the young lady has an interaction with is the Guild. And the Guild is a clandestine organization of thieves and butchers and gondoliers and madams and working girls and all of the kind of blue collar jobs of Venice. All of their individual guilds have kind of banded together into this larger syndicate organization, and each section of Venice, each part of the city of Venice, is run by a different leader who all answer to a king of thieves. So there's a prince of thieves within each district of the city. District is the word I was looking for a second ago. And then there is a king of thieves that kind of oversees them all. And there's a lot of conjecture and rumor about whether or not the king of thieves is actually real, or if it's a fictitious person that's been made up so that there's always, someone else to disperse. No one really knows who he is or what he looks like, so it's hard to say. And that's the Guild. I'm giving brief, quick overviews. Moving on, the next organization that our young friend will interact with on her trip through Venice this evening are the Rashar. Now, the Rashar are an eldritch fish people, Salgan, however that word is pronounced. They are servants of Dagon. And as soon as I heard the word Dagon, I was like, oh, so we got weird history, plus we've got Lovecraftian horror being brought into the mix. Sold me even further. So they're a combination of fish people and half fish people and servants. They have an organization called the Church of Dagon, which is very active in the San Canciano district of Venice. They actually do a lot of outreach work, which is, how cults tend to operate. They target those in society who are weaker or in greater need, and they provide and they fill that need, and they provide them a safe home, and then over time they indoctrinate them into their beliefs, and then over time I'm sure that's how they make little half fish people. But they spend a lot of time, they operate very, very well in the canals, because they have a lot of aquatic creatures, so it's very hard to drown a Rashar, and very impossible to drown some of the Rashar if they're actually aquatic creatures, because those cannot be drowned. And they've been around forever. Like, they've been swimming the seas and rivers of the world forever, but they've been called up from the deep seas and the deep dark by the rift opening in the sky. So after the Rashar, our young friend interacts with a class and group of people called the Patricians. So the Patricians are the noble aristocratic bourgeoisie of Venice. And while Carnival used to be an event that was celebrated once a year and everyone would wear their masks and they would go and have fancy parties, it has, since the appearance of the Rift, become where just every night is Carnevale. And what began with lots of drinking and rich food and entertainment and dancing and all of these things has, in a lot of cases now, degenerated into food and drinking and dancing and then murder orgies, where they just go out all Clockwork Orange style, just looking to commit some ultra violence against each other, against the peasantry that they may find wandering the street, another gang. They don't care. They're just out. They're like, they're very hedonistic, very egocentric, very much about rising through the ranks of the caste system of the nobility and the ranks of who's better than who at what and how and where and who has more and who gets more and who has more prestige. And it's just party after party after night after night after murder after orgy after orgy. It's just an endless loop of hedonistic debauchery. So after narrowly escaping from these patrician crazy people, we come into contact with some actual crazy people. The doctors, who occupy the Hospital de San Servillo on the island of San Servillo right outside the city, which was at one time an actual hospital, but now has degenerated into lots and lots of experimentation on animals as well as people. Every once in a while, the Rift will affect people in strange ways, causing them to go mad or to commit heinous deeds that they have no recollection of. And a lot of times, especially if they're noble or if the nobility just has a troublesome family member they need to get rid of, they will send them to the Hospital de San Servillo, where the doctors will do all kinds of crazy stuff to them, putting gems and crystals into them that have like harnessed and charged up with the magical energy from the Rift and trying to figure out ways to torture magical energy out of people. It's absolutely crazy and awesome. Lots of kind of body horror type themes and plague doctor masks and stuff. It's very, 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 very cool. My friend Bill, who's going to be playing a lot of this game with me, has a doctor's team. That's the team that he went with for this game. So you're going to be getting to seeing a lot. He's got beast doctors, so we're going to get to be seeing a lot of them, hopefully, as we play through some of the campaigns and other types of games that are on offer in this book. Anyways, the doctors are absolutely terrifying. Absolutely terrifying. After narrowly escaping from the doctors as well, our young heroine of the evening encounters members of the Holy See. We have the Vatican is our next faction, and within the Vatican and within the doctors and pretty much all the other factions as well, there are kind of sub-faction teams that you can put together, but I'm fairly certain that you can mix and match them throughout the overall faction as you please. So the Vatican is trying to contain and control the mess that they caused. Obviously, the actual Vatican City is gone. It has fallen into the ocean. New Pope has been elected, and they are doing their best to try to keep this thing under wraps, and they are not doing the best job. But they are in Venice. They are doing some good works, which is good, but they are contested for the people's love and adoration by the Church of Dagon, which they're not big fans of. After the Vatican, we have the Strigoi, which are the vampires. And there's, again, a couple different kind of subsects, but I love that in this game, Vlad Dracula is a playable part of the history of the world in the game. I love that inclusion along with his brides. Now, in addition, there are also aristocratic type vampires, and there are neonate kind of vampires. There's just straight Strigoi, which are kind of slightly deformed a little bit. They don't look entirely human, whereas the aristocratic vampires look very, very, very human. And it gives some backstory, kind of fits the traditional Dracula Vlad Tepes story into the fabric of the story that they have created for this game. And it does it in a very, very clean and elegant way that I enjoy a great deal. It kind of the squeeze a little bit. When I was first reading through that part, I really like that. That's probably the next one that I personally will buy. Will be some Strigoi, and definitely the Vlad Tepes model. After the Strigoi, the last faction that we encounter in our journey through Venice in this evening are the Gifted. The Gifted are, well, here, have a look at them. Some of them are pretty beautiful, and some of them are absolutely just absolute nightmare fuel. The Gifted are the premier magic users. These are the ones who, when the Rent or the Rift opened, it brought their latent natural magic abilities to the fore in many varied different ways. Some of them are absolute abominable horrors. Some of them are feted among the aristocracy, and it's not, if it's not a good party unless certain Gifted are able to show up, or it catapults your party into the next stratosphere if one of these individuals is willing to show up to your shindig. And again, that's all fluff. There's numerous pages, 5-10 pages per faction of fluff and backstory and all this other awesome fluffy information to kind of get you psyched up for the world that you're going to be playing inside of. Then we come to the rule section. So obviously we've got our explanation of the card and the stats. Your stats are move, dex, attack, protection, mind, and you have an associated number value with each of those stats. When you go to make a test, the game is all D10s. You roll, so for example on this card here, on this Cappuccino, you have an attack of 5. So you roll 5 D10s. One of those D10s is a fate dice, which is a different color from the rest of your dice. You always have to roll at least one fate dice because it affects your crit or fail, or critical fail, your fumble. Then you roll those dice and you're looking for a target number. And this is another thing that I liked about this game, is because, as I mentioned earlier with the White Wolf attachment that I have, the World of Darkness attachment I have, this is a very similar system to the old White Wolf games. I don't know about the new versions of those games, but it's a very similar system to the old games, where you have a dice pool, you roll that many D10s, and you're looking for target numbers within those D10s. And that resonates with me, that even though this is not World of Darkness, it's got the same kind of vibe story-wise. It's got a very similar kind of dice system. It just hits a lot of, I guess, inadvertent nostalgia buttons. Like, I don't think that was their intended effect. I don't think they did that on purpose. I definitely don't think, I'm not saying that they, appropriated a system that wasn't theirs. I'm just saying it reminds me of it, and it makes me happy. In a turn, when a character activates, it's alternating activation between players. You get a number of actions equal to your action points on the model. Some models will have more than 2, but the average is 2 actions for a model. There's a list of things that you can do. We're going to talk about those in a second. And then we have your health and your will and command points. Will is a resource, a finite resource that you can spend to add dice to a dice pool, as well as a couple of other things. Command points are things that not every models have. Command points are one of the things that was reworked in the fact, so it's the current iteration of command points and how they work and what they do is not the exact same as what's in this book. But again, it's a free PDF download, so whatever, no big deal on that one. So the game uses uses the dice pools in a couple of different ways. The most common way is roll your dice pool, look for target number. Your generic target number for doing most things is 7. Now the thing that it's not a 7 is when you attack. And Bill and I played half of a game where we were doing that wrong, and we both got it stuck in our heads real hard that you're always looking for a 7 in melee. And in melee, you're looking for your target number is your opponent's dex. And so that made a big difference once we figured that out. It made the game started going a lot quicker. People started getting jacked up pretty hard. And then it has opposed rolls, which are you roll, your opponent rolls, you subtract your opponent's successes, and then you see what you have left after the fact. Whenever you do roll these dice, there are charts, and these guys and gals over at TT Combat did a phenomenal job with their quick reference. I just want to put that out there. If I can just get a new quick reference that has the hide action on it, it'd be perfect. But their quick reference is beautiful. It has all of the tables you need, because whenever you do something, Let's say jumping, for example. You roll your dice and you consult the chart. And if you have just any number of just regular successes, there's one result. If you fail, there's a result. If you get a critical success, there's a result. And if you get a fumble, there is a different result. A critical success happens if your fate dice is a 10 and you're succeeding. A critical fumble will only happen if you fail the roll and roll a 1 on the fate dice. So a critical success is much easier to get than a critical fumble, but that chance is always present. Now, speaking of jumping, one of the things that makes this game very, very cool to play on the table is the very much parkour kind of Assassin's Creed type feeling that the game has. And one of the things that they've done to vary, and then I'm going to talk about this rule, it's a very small rule, but it's one that I enjoy the most, and it's the chain jump rule. So if you jump on something, you can take another jump action at 0 AP for free to try to continue your jump. If you jump, and not if you jump on and land on the ground, but if you jump and land on an obstacle or debris like a wall or something floating in the water, you can take another jump action for free. And I don't know why, but I can just picture it in my head of just like going dee, 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 boom, boom, up a building like that. And I haven't gotten to do it yet, but I'm very excited for it. There's also a lot of cool stuff with, like, if you jump down on somebody from the top of the building, again, kind of Assassin's Creed style, you get extra damage penetration on the attack roll to represent the force of you and your blade or weapon coming down on top of somebody. You can drown people in the canals, and all of these things have a very simple chart that you consult to see if you were successful, and if you were successful, how successful you were. And it's very, very intuitive with the quick reference. Now, if this game did not have the quality quick reference that it does, it would probably be atrocious to play, because you would be constantly flipping through the book looking for the table that you need. But with the quick reference, it's all just boom, 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 right there, front, back, 2 pieces, let's go. It's a beautiful piece of work. And the list of actions is pretty varied. You've got grapples, drowning, attacking, fighting, diving down underwater to block things, falling, moving, jumping. There's a lot of ways that you can use the board. Like the battlefield really becomes an important part of the game, because there's some fairly fun and creative ways for you to traverse and interact with that terrain that are just... they're just super cool. They're just super fun, and it's a very, very cinematic game. It's very, very easy to see these things happening, in a very thematic and exciting and engaging way. And I just absolutely adore it. And the fold-up cardstock buildings that it comes with are absolutely beautifully printed. Now, obviously, I would like to replace that with the really nice Venetian cities that TT Combat has. Wink, wink, TT Combat. Because it's a really awesome set, and it would be a beautiful board if I could get my hands on that. And I will eventually, I'm sure. But once I do, I'm gonna definitely pour some resin for that, I think, just to make it awesome and just awesome. But with just the terrain that they give you in the box set, it plays beautifully, and it looks really, really, really nice. And there also are rules for like rowing the gondola along the canals and all stuff like that. After that, we come into the campaign section and the scenario section. There are linked campaigns. You can play linked games where your people will get better over the course of things, if I'm not mistaken. And they have linked stories. So there are 12 campaigns in the core book, and each campaign consists of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I'd say 4 to 6 missions probably, and they're specific days or months. Like, for example, the one I'm looking right here is a starving city, and this is a campaign that represents September of 1794. And for some of them, like for these, you can be any 2 gangs you want. Some of them are gang specific, so some of them require you to, like, for example, one player has a patrician team and one player has a whatever else team. So there are some campaigns that are specifically designed for specific factions to engage in, and there's some that are open, just play whoever you've got or whoever you want. And I'm thinking that Bill and I are going to get into quite a few of these over the coming months. Hopefully we'll play as many of the missions as we can. And right now we've got 3 between us. I've got a fairly sizable guild faction team as well as a sizable Rashar team. He's got the Beast Doctors and he's thinking of expanding into some of some Play Doctor stuff like that. So hopefully we'll be playing a lot of this soon. We're going to start off the playing with the 2 little starter missions from the San Canciano box, and then we'll go from there. And then the very, very back of the book is a really solid in the book reference section. Now, and it comes, when I was talking about the quick references earlier. Words are hard sometimes. Those come to you. You don't have to print those or anything else. They just give you 2 solid, nice, shiny card stock quick references. One thing that I wish they included. They do sell decks for the agendas, which are kind of like your hidden objective type things. I wish that they gave you some pages to photocopy or some cards as a PDF that you could print out. But it is what it is. They're like $9. They're not bad. And then we've got a few pages that describe the different types of magic that you can use. The schools of magic, which are blood rites, divinity, fate weaving, runes of sovereignty, and wild magic. And then we come into our character abilities. The keyword abilities, things that all characters have in war games, the special things that they can do and such not. And then the rest of our quick reference stuff. So all that is fine and good, right? But let's talk turkey. Let's talk numbers. So the big Carnevale box set, if you buy it straight from TT Combat, is 65 Great British Pounds. Which is about $80-85 US. Now, for that $80-85, you're getting about 15 models. You're getting 7 or 8 models on each side for the guild and for the Rashar. You're getting probably 6 to 8 of the cardstock buildings. You're getting tiles that you can use in canal. So it's not a set fold-out mat. You get 1x1 tiles that are double-sided, and they have different ways that you can configure the canal so that the board you're playing on isn't always the exact same configuration of canals going through the city. You get 2 sets of dice that come with, everything you need for the fate dice and everything. You get a resin gondola. You get some punch-out type terrains. You get some acrylic tokens. You get some acrylic widgets, measuring widgets, blast widget, all that kind of stuff. For like $80, $80-85 American, that's an outstanding deal. The smaller one, the San Canciano box, is like $30, maybe $40 US, and it has 8 models and a fold-up mat and some more dice and some punch-out tokens, like some cardboard tokens, some cardstock tokens, and a few more of the buildings, and it's more smaller rule book, smaller quick reference stuff. They're good deals. It's a very, very reasonably priced game, reasonable entry point game. Now, some of the war bands that you can buy are not really full-on war bands. You're not going to get the points out of one war band box that you need for some of the campaigns. However, the boxes aren't incredibly expensive. I think they're 25 pounds, so 30 to 35-ish bucks American, I think, something give or take. I'm not a finance person. I don't know the exact exchange rate, so please excuse me if I'm just way off. But I know that that's about what it ends up being, I think. I've looked at them on eBay. They're like 30 to 39 bucks, depending on which one you want. But whenever I can, I would rather order from the actual people who sell the thing. So if you've got a buddy that'll play the game with you, my recommendation is the San Canciano box along with the other starter box. That way both people get a rule book. They aren't going to be completely up to date, but they're not invalid either. They're, for the most part, the dice mechanics, the rules, all that stuff is going to be pretty much the same. Just always yield to the most current edition, or the most current version of the rules, rather. And you shouldn't have any problems. And you can split that, and you can both have a lot of fun playing through that stuff. And then, you figure, I think you probably need 2 of the other warband. Like if you wanted to do doctors, you probably need 2 boxes of doctors to do the things, or some single models and stuff. So not dirt cheap, but very, very reasonable. It's very reasonably priced, at least on the starter box side of things. Incredible, better than reasonable. It's an excellent price, in my opinion, for the starter boxes. The individual warbands are par for the course for good, well-made, well-sculpted, crisp resin models. The resin models that I had, with the exception of one of the gondoliers, were all perfect out of the box. I had one gondolier that had a very crooked oar that I was unable to straighten out, which is unfortunate, but it happens with resin. Also in the starter box, all of the models are one piece. There's no push fit, there's no clipping. I take that back. You have to clip the floodgates and the flash off the bottom, maybe give them a little scrape for some flash. But for the most part, they are single piece models. You can just plop them onto their base, prime them, paint them, and get it on the table. Now, it is my understanding that the individual warband kits that you can buy, however, are not. They are multi-piece kits. And Bill said that his did not come with instructions, but that they were fairly intuitive to build, which sounds about right for us. I don't know why it is with resin models, but a lot of times resin models don't seem to come with instructions, whereas plastic kits more often do, or at least some kind of reference as to what goes where on the sprue. But again, I haven't bought and built any of that stuff, so what you're hearing from me right now is just hearsay. I have no firsthand proof to form a proper opinion. So what I will say is that the kits are reasonably priced and the sculpts are absolutely gorgeous. And that, my friends, is going to do it for our conversation about Carnevale from TT Combat. In my opinion, this is a solid buy. This is a good buy. This is a great entry-level war game, I would say. Between the quality of the quick reference and the simplicity of the system, if you've got somebody who's kind of on the fence about wargaming, and they're not sure, this would be a very good game to bring them in because it is very, very action-packed. The movement is very dynamic and thematic and cinematic, and the dice system is very, very simple. If you can roll and look for and identify numbers and count, you can play this game. So until next time, I hope you have just absolutely amazing days, nights, weeks, months, everything. I hope everything is great. And I want you to know that I'm incredibly grateful that you chose to stop by and hang out today and let me talk at you for a minute. And as always, I'd like to say a big, huge, from the bottom of my heart, thank you to our patrons who support us and pledge to us over on Patreon. You guys are the absolute best. If you enjoyed the content you saw here today and that's something that you would like to consider doing to help out the channel, go over there, check out the link in the description, check out the Patreon. There's a lot of cool stuff over there, including access to our Discord server. Talk to me, hang out with me, talk about our work, what we got going on in the hobby. Some shout outs, all kinds of cool stuff. Check it out if that's something that you think you would be into. And regardless of whether or not you do that, I want you to know that I am incredibly grateful that you decided to stop by and spend part of your day with me today, rolling dice and pushing toy soldiers around. I hope you have an amazing rest of your day. And as always, may the dice be ever in you.